Did you know that home buyers are now wishing for a housing market crash? That's right. In fact, about 36% of people are looking for a housing crash because housing has become so unaffordable and people have become desperate and want to get a piece of that American dream. And now 36% of folks think that that's going to be the only way they're ever going to be able to get it. And I kind of agree, because unless something major changes in the housing market, how is anybody magically going to be able to afford a house? But of course, a lot of people will push back against this and say that's not realistic. You know, we're not going to have a housing crash because of X, Y, and Z. So let's go through some of these points on why people want this and how likely it is to potentially happen. At the end of last year, LendingTree did a survey and they found out that 36% of people wanted the housing market to crash, and 29% of renters said that a crash would be the only way they could ever afford to buy. And among the people who said they are wishing for a crash, 11% of them said they believe the crash would lower property taxes, and 8% said a crash would help them to buy a home. And those people are not wrong. So what is it going to take for the housing market to actually crash? Because right now, we're already in a situation where inventory has pretty much come back to pre-pandemic levels, except for a few pockets of the country. We're also at a point where homebuyer demand is extremely low, so there's not a lot of competition out there. Most homes are not getting multiple offers. It does still happen, but very seldom compared to how it was a couple of years ago. Well, the number one thing, the biggest catalyst to potentially seeing a housing market crash would be unemployment going up substantially. You know, unemployment is still in the low 4% range, and it would need to probably at least double from there in order for us to see a full-blown housing crash. You already have people right now that are having a hard time affording their mortgage payment, their property taxes, and insurance. But if that many people were to lose their income overnight, then the amount of listings on the market would likely explode. So would foreclosures and eventually short sale listings, and that would be enough to bring the entire ship down. Now, a lot of people are looking at this small little recession that we had in 2020 and saying, well, home prices didn't come down during that time, even though home sales fell sharply, just like they have right now. And the main reason that home prices did not come down is because of the massive injection of cash into the economy. It is almost a guarantee that if the government did not perform the mass stimulus that they did and inject over $6 trillion into our economy, we certainly would have seen home prices fall, because unemployment would have gone a lot higher than it actually did, and they were paying people to stay at home. Let's not forget that. Many people were able to stay at home for months, if not over a year, without doing any work and make the same amount of money, if not more money, than they were making at their job. Let's not pretend like that didn't happen. Now, there's been a lot of talk that we could be entering the next recession at some point this year, although many of us believe that we're already in the recession. However, it's likely to get a whole lot worse in the second half of 2025, and that could be the catalyst that sends unemployment through the roof. We've already been seeing mass amounts of job layoffs this year and many more layoffs announced. And the reason why that makes such a difference is because you're going to have a lot of people all at the same time that cannot afford the house and are going to be listing the house for sale. And that's in addition to all the homes that are for sale today. And the buyer demand will likely grow even weaker than it is right now, because a lot of people who are going to be losing their jobs are not just going to be homeowners, but also prospective home buyers as well. So that combination of factors would set inventory spiking much higher than it is right now, while simultaneously pushing home buyer demand much lower than it is right now, which means anybody out there left who is willing and able to buy in that environment is going to want a deal, because there are going to be a tremendous amount of homes for sale to choose from, and so it is going to be easily a buyer's market under those conditions. But remember, this is what people are wishing for in order for them to be able to afford a house. People are literally wishing for the economy to crash at this point in order for them to afford a home. Guys, that's how desperate the situation is. And I can't really blame them, because the reality is there's not really any other way that we are going to arrive at that point, I don't believe. The mainstream has said for a long time that we have a housing shortage and we need to build, 6-7 million new homes in order for us to make it so that everybody can afford to be able to buy a home. But that is just simply not true. There are plenty of homes out there. Many of them are sitting empty. You see a bunch of them on my walks here in Miami, and even when I go to California too, other places I visited across the country, many of these houses are just sitting empty. They're just being unsold because the sellers are being stubborn and refusing to lower the price. Now, Zillow did a study between 1996 and 2018, and they found out that during the recessions we had in that time period, that home prices and home appreciation was still positive 81% of the time, even throughout those recessions. And of course, the biggest outlier there is going to be the 2008 recession, when unemployment did spike beyond 10% and many people did lose their homes to foreclosures and short sales in those times. But during like a normal bread and butter recession, we might not see home prices drop in a meaningful way. However, the reason I think that even if we just get a bread and butter recession, and the reason why that might be different, is because home prices are already kind of on shaky ground. They're not really climbing anymore. In a lot of areas of the country, they're already starting to drop, especially here in Florida. And it's not going to take much to push this economy over the edge, in my opinion. You have your average homeowner right now in a much more stable financial position than how people were back in 2008, as well as the fact that 70% of homeowners have a mortgage rate that's below 5% right now, and they're saying that's one of the reasons that the housing market is going to remain resilient. But the reality is, no matter how low your mortgage interest rate is, that doesn't stop you from needing to sell your house if your property taxes and insurance become unaffordable, or if you lose your job and you don't have any income to pay the mortgage. Basically, the rule of thumb is that the more economic stress we see, the more people are going to be likely to list their homes on the market for sale in the coming months and years. Because you can only hang on for so long before you have to throw in the towel and just say, I cannot afford this anymore. I'm going to have to get rid of this place. And this is what I mean. If you look at the most recent data from Realtor.com, they have now determined that this is the 42nd week in a row that the national home price has either remained steady or dropped compared to the same week last year, which means that we've been in a situation for about a year now where home prices are not going up, guys. They are staying flat, regardless of what you see with some of these median figures that they give you. Remember that the median home price is heavily influenced by the top of the line luxury sales that sell for far beyond what the average sale price actually is. And since more of those sales are happening than on the lower end these days, that is skewing the median home price. And essentially, home prices are no longer growing. We're also in a situation where home prices with the price cut actually jumped by 0.8% this week, which suggests that sellers are making adjustments in the reaction of the growing inventory and the slowing housing market conditions. Meanwhile, new listings for the week grew for the 10th consecutive week, jumping more than 10% from the same period last year. And this upswing suggests that sellers are growing more confident and getting off the sidelines despite stubbornly high mortgage rates. I don't agree with that. I think that this suggests that more sellers are in two camps. They're either in one camp that I need to cash out now while prices are still relatively high before they go down, or they're in the camp that I can't really afford this house anymore and I need to sell it while I still have an equity position. That's what I think most homeowners are doing, with the exception of people that are just moving for work or moving for some reason or another and going to buy a house in a different location. Now check out this set of data right here. The total number of homes for sale nationwide is now up 28.5% this week from 1 year ago, making the 71st consecutive week of growth. So home inventory has been increasing for 71 weeks in a row on the US housing market. that is an extremely positive sign for buyers and a pretty negative sign for sellers. But the fact of the matter is that none of this positive news for buyers is actually getting buyers off the sidelines to come out and actually purchase homes still. In fact, I saw another story talking about when will mortgage rates drop? And according to Wells Fargo, not for years to come. And a lot of people are thinking and waiting that, hey, we're going to wait for mortgage rates to come down and then we'll jump back in to buy a home, because that's the only problem. At least that's what the mainstream media and the big real estate websites like Zillow and all their economists, they come out and tell people, yeah, the only problem is that we're just waiting for mortgage rates to drop. As soon as that happens, then everybody's going to come pouring back into the market, because there's nothing wrong with the prices. We just need mortgage rates to drop. You gotta admit, it is just stunningly beautiful out here today, and all I can tell you is that it feels just as good out here as it looks. I wish I could just jump into this water right now and do the rest of the video right here from the water. Now, going back to the mortgage rate situation, mortgage rates are likely going to average 6.9% throughout the rest of 2025 before ticking lower to around 6.5% in 2026. And this is projected by Wells Fargo. And as of today, mortgage rates are sitting at around 6.7% for the 30-year fixed. So not too far away from the 6.9% average that Wells Fargo is saying we're going to see for the rest of the year. This is a quote from Wells Fargo. It's going to be a challenging environment in our view over the next couple of years because we don't expect mortgage rates to drop below 6%. Well, just a minute ago, Realtor.com was saying that sellers are getting optimistic and that's why they're coming off the sidelines and putting their homes on the market for sale. So that narrative doesn't really match what the predictions are going forward for the housing market. Obviously, the Fed meeting just happened this week and they left interest rates unchanged. They didn't raise or lower them. And they're still sticking with the prediction that they may only lower them about 50 basis points throughout the rest of the year. So there may be 2 small rate cuts later in the year, and that's a huge maybe. And that is unlikely to have much of an impact on the mortgage rates, which is why Wells Fargo is predicting that we're still looking at least 6.5% rates next year. The reality is, unless there is some sort of economic catastrophe, we are not going to be seeing a situation where mortgage rates are going to be coming back to the way they were during the pandemic. Nobody's going to be getting a 3% mortgage rate in the near future. Now, at the same token, though, their home price prediction is that home prices are going to rise by 4.3% in the next year, by the end of this year, essentially. So how can that happen? How can home prices go up at the same time no one's buying and demand is down and inventory is going up? Well, it's going back to what I've explained here many times on the channel. It is because only homes on the high-end market right now are the ones that are selling for the most part. People that don't have a care in the world with money are the ones who are buying homes. And guess what? When they buy a home, that drives up the median home price because more sales are taking place in that upper echelon of prices, which means it moves that median home price higher up the ladder. But that doesn't mean that your normal house, that's around $400,000 is climbing in value. And let's not forget either that the rising property taxes and the rising insurance are also putting a tremendous strain on the home sales as well. Because now people are waking up and realizing that, yeah, there are a lot of extra expenses associated with buying a house that I might not be able to afford. It's already tough enough to be able to pay this price for the house, but can I really afford to keep up with the ongoing costs and the ongoing maintenance? And a lot of times these days, the answer is no. And you can see here by looking at this home purchase index that things just aren't happening, guys. Right now, as of the latest reading, the home purchase index is sitting at a 144, and you can see this is the lowest it has been going all the way back to 1995. So this still correlates that the 30-year low in buyer demand is hanging in there. It is not recovering, not even close. And here are some of the concerns that many would-be home buyers have expressed in a recent survey. Obviously, everybody's concerned about the price of a home right now, but check this out. 80% of would-be home buyers said they are waiting for mortgage rates to come down before buying a home in 2025. Well, going back to the Wells Fargo projections that we just talked about, mortgage rates are not going to be coming down anytime soon. If anything, they're just going to remain pretty much close to where they are throughout the rest of the year. So anybody who thinks they want to buy in 2025 might as well get with the program, and you're going to be having a mortgage rate that's in the mid sixes and close to 7 in some cases. And little by little, some sellers are just having to get more and more realistic with the price, because if $5 million isn't already crazy enough, they listed this house for sale back in May of 2024 for $5 million, also listed it for rent for $32,000. Clearly no takers on that. And as of March, just this year, they lowered the price almost $500,000 down to $4,555,000. So still far beyond what the average house in this neighborhood costs, guys. Selling these houses these days is like, winning the lottery in that sense. You got to be lucky enough to find the perfect buyer to get a house like this sold. Now, here's what home buyers are hoping for and looking for when it comes to mortgage rates in order for them to get off the sidelines. 18% said they're waiting for rates to drop below 6.5%. 27% said they're waiting for rates to drop below 6%. And 30% said they're waiting for rates to drop below 5.5%. And 25% are waiting for rates to drop below 5%. So the vast majority of people are looking for an interest rate at least below 6%, if not even below 5%, which is highly unlikely to happen for at least the next 2 years. At least. The only way that's going to happen is if we enter the next depression, which easily could happen at this point. And a lot of home buyers just don't have realistic expectations, as you can see, especially when you look at this. 48% of people are willing to wait between 3 and 6 months for mortgage rates to fall, but obviously rates aren't going to dip below that anytime soon. And I'm telling you this right now, guys, if you are just a normal buyer, forget, people in the luxury market who are looking for $1 million plus homes, this doesn't apply here. But if you're just a regular person living in middle America or somewhere where home prices are average or close to the median home price, I would not be sitting there worried and losing sleep at night anymore about the home prices going up too much while you're waiting for mortgage rates to come down. Because that's the biggest fear tactic that a lot of real estate agents and mortgage brokers will try to instill in you and say, listen, you can wait for mortgage rates to come down, but in the meantime, home prices are going to be going up, so anything you save on the mortgage rate, you're going to spend extra on purchasing the house. That is not going to be true, probably at least for the next couple of years. The reality is nobody knows where prices or mortgage rates are going to go, but at this rate, at the way things are going right now, it is highly unlikely to see mortgage rates drop, and it is highly unlikely to see home prices continue to rise in any meaningful way. So that's why everybody should follow the same advice that I always tell everybody, is that you should buy a house when you feel like you're ready. When you find the house that you're interested in, that you can afford, that you've saved enough money for the down payment for, that you still have plenty of money left over for after closing in order to be able to pay for upgrades, repairs, unexpected expenses, etc. Once you meet that criteria, then you can buy a home, regardless of what's going on. And this is how home buyers are describing their local real estate markets right now. People are using the words unpredictable, expensive, confusing, and bad. 37% said they think their local market is more likely than others to worsen over the next 3 years, while 28% said their local market is less likely to worsen, and 27% said the market is about the same as others. Now, I don't know what people mean by worsen. I would imagine worsen meaning that it's harder and more unaffordable to buy, considering this is a survey of buyers. So a worse market for buyers is a situation of low inventory and high prices. And it makes sense you have a chunk of people that are concerned about that, considering there are still places in the country that are facing exactly that problem. But personally, I think it's still a time to exercise patience. Just don't rush into anything. Wait to find the right house at the price that you know you can afford, that you feel good about right now. You know, don't feel the FOMO in the sense that, oh, you know, if I don't get this house, I'm never going to get anything, or I'm never going to be able to afford a house, because that is just not the case, guys. Anybody who's trying to tell you that is just trying to pressure you into making a decision so that way they can get paid. I mean, think about who's telling you that. I'm not telling you that because I don't make any money by telling you the truth, okay? And I don't make any money trying to mislead you. The people who are going to be telling you that are the people who are trying to make a commission off of your decision. And of course, their advice is always going to skew towards, yeah, you should probably do it sooner than later because I need to get paid sooner than later. But I think this is all good news. It's good news because you're going to have more options. It's good news because you don't have to feel the FOMO. You don't have to worry about prices spiraling out of control like they did over the past 5 years. And knowing that we're kind of entering a situation of a more calm market where you don't have everybody fighting over the same house, and you can kind of save your money and choose more wisely, I think overall that's a good thing. And listen, if you're somebody that determines that you did find the right house and you are in the right situation, or you're at a time in your life when you need to sell your house, don't forget that I offer that service to you completely for free. You can always use the link down in the description of my videos, and I can get you set up with a real estate agent in your area 100% for free. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.